welcome back to the channel. If you haven't liked, please do. Subscribe, please do. In this video, we're gonna go over fluke fishing, soft plastic jerk bait fishing. For me, living up here in North Georgia, the banks of Lake Lanier, a soft plastic jerk bait is an absolute critical part of my arsenal. And having the right equipment makes that so much easier. There's subtle little nuances with a fluke. If you've ever been to a blueback herring lake, thrown a fluke out there, ripped it back a couple times, yeah, some might eat it, but most of the time, they're just gonna follow. So having the right equipment to make subtle little nuances to your retrieve are critical with getting fish in the boat and getting fish to bite. So without further ado, let's get into the rod and reel. The Shimano X-Pride 7.6 medium light plus. So that plus indicates it's an in-between action between a medium light and a medium. I really like this rod because it has just enough tip to be able to work the bait and do subtle little nuances with it that we'll talk about later on. But the 7.6 length allows you to reel, make a real long cast, and also have the power to reel those fish in, get them away from the school to make another presentation and catch another bass later on. For the reel, I'm gonna use a 3000 size Shimano. This one right here is the Twin Power. I really like the 3000 size. It just is a perfect sweet spot for the amount of line it holds, but also it's not super heavy. There's times where I've really experimented with using a 4000, which is a really big reel, but having enough line pickup is crucial. If they start schooling, you need to get your bait on top of them ASAP. So having that bigger reel, basically, there's so many advantages to a bigger reel. Basically, smoother drag, more power, more line pickup. Pretty simple there. For the line, I'm using 10-pound Power Pro. Right now I'm experimenting with some line. This is some Seaguar PX8, but still Power Pro is in my heart. Working at Tackle Warehouse, I've got to try all the lines that guys are talking about, so I decided to throw that on this. But for me, it's gonna be Power Pro day in and day out. As far as the leader goes, this is something that not a lot of people talk about. I like a really short leader. This is about as long as I'm gonna do. So short leaders have kind of become the new thing in the minnow game. And basically you have more of a direct connection between your rod and the bait when you have less fluorocarbon to absorb the shock of you moving the bait. So it's such a direct connection that you're able to do those subtle little nuances in your retrieve that I mentioned earlier. But because we're using a short leader, there's big spotted bass, big largemouth, stripers, hitting this bait so hard, and oftentimes right at the boat, short lining you, I want a thicker, bigger, stronger leader material. So for me, I'm using minimum 12-pound up to about 15-pound fluorocarbon leader. This one right here is the Berkeley line. You can also use a Shimano line. But you'll notice too, spotted bass have a lot of teeth, so going up to that bigger size leader also is such a big deal, so you're not retying leaders. I tie an FG knot just because it's the only knot I do tie for braided leader connection, but when it's not going through your guides, you can get away with an Alberto. I just think that's the strongest knot possible, so why not tie it? And I can do it just as fast. See the hook I have on there? It's kind of a weird deal. It's not what you would suggest or one would think for throwing a soft plastic jerkbait, and that is a Ryugi Talisman 2-aught. So I'm gonna grab my flukes here. This one right here is the Big Bite 5-inch Disco Violet jerk minnow. So I like the jerk minnow a lot because of how thick it is. It's such a bigger bait. Weighs a lot more than like a Zoom fluke. Still love the Zoom fluke. I go back and forth whether for certain applications, there's not just one fluke to throw. I'm sponsored by Big Bite, but I'll tell you right now, I use a lot of the Yamamoto stuff, there's a bunch of different brands that make good flukes, but if I was gonna pick two, Zoom, Yamamoto, and Big Bite. Rigging a fluke, I do it a little bit differently. They call this one the Banjo Minnow Rig. So basically you're gonna take your soft plastic jerkbait, this is the Big Bite one. This one I really like, it's really heavy, casts a long ways, and the action is great. So Disco Violet, Chartreuse, they have all of the typical blueback herring colors. This right here is a hitchhiker / CPS screw. Basically, it is what comes on those screw lock swim bait hooks. So I'm gonna take that screw lock, and what I'm gonna do is put that right in the nose of the bait. So I'm gonna center it up, and then get to twisting. And then twist it all the way in to where as far into the bait as you can get it, where you really can't even see it's there. Get my hook, which is a Ryugi talisman in a 2-aught. I'm gonna find that hole. I'm gonna grab a little bit of meat in the plastic. I wanna make sure my hook goes through the opening of that spring, just like that. And there you have a nose rigged fluke. One other thing I like to do a lot of the times is, depending on the fish's aggression level, sometimes I need to sink a bait below the surface. Sometimes they won't come up and eat it off the surface. And I gotta sink the bait. Sometimes these fish are not as aggressive and you have to actually sink a bait to them and then reel it up to the surface. So I actually just grab a nail weight and I'll open the bait up and shove it up through the gills. That's what I call it, that slot underneath. And basically I'll get it almost into one of those rings. And you can kind of see the nail through there a little bit. But there you have exactly how I have it rigged. Disco Violet's one of the best colors on a herring lake. And it's not your typical fluke rig by any means, but that is how I like to do it. It has the best action. I feel like it has the best hookup ratio, better than a worm hook or EWG. I feel like those worm hooks or EWGs, sometimes they'll swipe at a bait, not get it. If you put a treble hook on those baits, they just don't swim correctly. So having that open hook like that, where it has the most freedom of movement, seems to be the best way to trigger bites. And all right, guys, that's going to wrap up our video. Appreciate you guys watching. Please like and subscribe. If you want to go on a guide trip with me, Lake Lanier, any of these North Georgia mountain lakes, or even in Alabama, please get with me at my website, bassandrosguideservice.com. My Instagram is jmad_fishing. Both of those are great ways to get in touch with me. Guys, please comment below what you thought about this video. How do you rig a fluke? And also suggest what we should talk about next in the next video. Appreciate you guys.